Well, welcome once again. This is the Doctor of Digital podcast, igniting transformation through the power of love. Purpose of the show is to transform your business and life with education and inspiration. I introduce busy people to trends and ideas in improving your life by highlighting authors you should know. Can a single choice to live with fearless love reshape your life and the world around you? In her best selling books, Love Is and Cry Until You Laugh, Kim Sorrelle invites readers to explore love not as a fleeting feeling, but as a bold, transformative action. Join us as we delve into Kim's year long experiment to redefine love, uncovering revelations that break down barriers, heal hearts, and inspire purposeful living. This conversation will challenge you to rethink what it means to love fully and fearlessly in every aspect of your life. Kim Sorrelle is a dynamic force, a keynote speaker, best-selling author, and advocate for living with unwavering love and gratitude. With a background that spans corporate engagements, global conferences, and heartfelt storytelling, Kim has earned acclaim for her raw, relatable approach to inspiring change. Her book, Love Is, has been celebrated for its groundbreaking insights, drawn from a personal journey that resonates universally. And Cry Until You Laugh offers grace and humor through life's challenges. As a world changer who connects authentically with audiences from boardrooms to community halls, Kim empowers people to embrace practice, earning a reputation as a fierce encourager of joy and connection. In this episode, we'll dive into Kim Sorrelle's vision for a life fueled by love, exploring how her insights from Love Is and Cry Until You Laugh can transform personal and professional relationships. We'll discuss practical tools for embodying gratitude, grace, and fearless love, whether you're leading a team, navigating personal growth, or seeking deeper meaning. Kim's expertise will guide us through real world strategies to make love an actionable force, inspiring listeners to live with purpose. By the end of this episode, you'll be equipped to better influence your life with love that transforms. And I urge you to connect with Kim Sorrelle to take the next step. Pick up Love Is or Cry Until You Laugh to discover the powerful blueprint for limitlessly. Reach out to Kim for speaking engagements or to share ideas at her website. Start your journey to a life of connection and today. With that, I want to welcome Kim to the program. Much for taking some time out. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, doctor. And I'm so pleased to be here. So thank you so much for having me.
You bet. So I'm fascinated to dive into your story because it's such an intriguing background. And so please tell us, how did you get into this journey of love?
Well, it's interesting. It's going to sound odd to begin with, but hopefully I'll connect the dots for you. I was diagnosed with breast cancer a few years ago. And holy cow, that's a smack across the face, right? Like,
Sure.
uh, but then my husband started having stomach issues. And so 4 months into my diagnosis, my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer
Oh my.
and he passed away 6 weeks after that. And man, I'll tell you, did that rock my world? I mean, we were going to be that couple sitting on a porch and rockers sipping lemonade or whatever people
Mhm.
do in their 90s on a porch and rockers, right? And never did I expect at 47 years old to be alone. I We never even talked about it. Like it was never anything that crossed my mind
Mhm.
that at that age I would lose the love of my life. And so it made me question some things, made me question how I was going to survive, what I was going to live as a single person, single adult that I'd never been really. And
Mhm.
but it made me question a lot of things. And my husband was a wonderful guy, and I wanted to know that I was living a life that was honoring him. And sometimes people can crawl into a hole and never come out of it. And I didn't want to do that with my grief. I didn't want to crawl into a hole and not come out. I wanted to be happy, be the person that I am, be joyful, be grateful,
Mm.
and through that, honor my husband. And so I thought, well, how can I do this? Like, how do I know that I'm living the right way? And I thought, well, you know, love. If I love, really love, then if I ask myself, what would love do? And I answer a question that way, then I should be living right.
Mm.
So then I thought, well, shoot, well, then what is love? And I'll tell you, I think if you put 14 people in a room and said, "What is love?" you'd get 14 different answers. And I looked and looked for somebody who'd written a book or did some sort of deep dive, and I couldn't find it. So I decided that I would dedicate a year. I have to say that
Mm.
a year, because for me, I have a hard time committing to an entree when I go out for dinner. So dedicating a year to something was a real stretch for me, but dedicating a year to figuring out the true meaning of love. And I was in Haiti most of the time when I was working on it, which added a whole nother layer of something. And the things that I found out about love rocked my world and changed my life and turned everything upside down for me. And through my book is now and speaking is now changing other lives.
Now, this is what I find fascinating, that it's almost counterintuitive because you experience clearly some of the worst tragedies in life, illness and death, and yet rather than having anger and frustration and wondering why, because that's a common question, you went just the opposite. So how did you do that? Like, why love as opposed to anger and frustration and disappointment?
You know, my husband, the great man that he uh, was a pessimist, and I'm an optimist. And but he would say that he was a realist and that I live in La La Land. And I
Mhm.
got to tell you, I like it in La La Land. Like I'd so much rather be happy than sad. I'd so much rather think about love than think about anger.
Hmm.
And anger hurts people. You know, physically, it can do damage to your body. Like anger doesn't get you places normally, but love does. Love opens doors, and love creates connections. And I'd rather be the connection creator and the person who loves people than the person who's bitter and angry.
Can you break down the books a little bit too, in terms of content and why more than one, and how did that come about?
Yeah, well, my first book, Cry Until You Laugh, I actually started writing when I was diagnosed with cancer. And I went to the bookstore and everything was either depressing or very medical. And I
Mm.
wanted to know, well, how does it feel? And are there choices you have to make? And what am I going to be facing? And so I started writing as a way to kind of keep up family and friends. Hey, I'm going to the doctor tomorrow, surgery, whenever. But it was so much more than that. And so I was still writing then when my husband was diagnosed and through him passing away. So I wrote for about a year,
Okay.
and so that's what Cry Until You Laugh is it's everything that I was feeling and going through and just the realness of what you deal with. And then Love is a sequel of sort of just because that was the next episode for me was to figure out love. And I took a 2,000-year-old poem, "Love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, does not boast." You hear it at a lot of weddings, your eyes glaze over, right?
Yes.
And yeah, but I decided I'd take one word or phrase a month and figure out, well, what is love that is patient? What is love that is kind? And I'll tell you, the first thing I figured out was that there's 14 isn't of love. So it took me a little longer than a year. But the second thing I found out is that if you put love is or love is not in front of any word or phrase, it totally changes the meaning.
Hmm. So First Corinthians 15 was an inspiration for you. So
Yes,
I,
right.
I'm curious then about, and a lot of potential authors or authors are the kind of writing process. Some people are morning writers, sometimes are afternoon. You mentioned you were in Haiti. You may have maybe the geographical area that you're in or physical area you're in. Well, what is your writing process like?
I wish that I could tell you that I have this great schedule and I'm so disciplined and every morning I get up at 6 a.m. and write, but that's not at all true. Uh, I love to write, but I love to write when I'm feeling inspired. When I wrote Love Is, when I wrote Cry Until You Laugh, I didn't write every day. I wrote when I knew I had something to say. And when I wrote Love Is, I would write it at the end of every month after I experienced an entire month because I might be a slow learner, I'm not sure, but it took an entire month to figure out each one of those things. The love is patient, love is kind. And it every year, every month without fail, it's like I had to get hit over the head with something ridiculous to go, oh, now I get it. Now I finally get it. And then I would write about it. So that I guess was my process.
And you said you write when you're inspired. So what inspires you? Like, can you encourage inspiration? Can you encourage creativity? I guess is a question.
Yeah. Well, if you want to be a writer, in your audience, you've got lots of people who want to write a book or in the middle of writing a book.
Hmm.
And if you find it arduous, like if it's not fun for you, which it's not for a lot of writers. I mean, it's not like you're not a writer because you're going, "Oh my gosh, it's the drag of it," because it can be, because books are long.
Yep.
It's one thing to write an email, it's another thing to write a book. And so it takes a lot more time, and it does take some focus and, some figuring it out. But I think what I look for is, I'm a storyteller. So if I have a story that goes with something, that that's so easy to write, right? Like I was chased by a motorcycle gang. I slept outside with tarantulas and snakes and chupacabras or whatever's lurking in the bushes of Haiti. Like I had stories every month of things that I would go through
Mm.
just to get to the answer I was looking for. And I love to write a story. So uh, I think when for me, and maybe for other people, when you really enjoy your topic, you really know your topic, and you're excited about your topic,
Hmm.
that's the inspiration is easy, because that's what it is, and you already love what you're going to write about. So putting it on paper uh, shouldn't be difficult. Shouldn't be so difficult.
Sure. And then a lot of writers, potential authors are curious, and I'm curious about your background in terms of the publishing aspect, because now with so many options, there's self-publishing, hybrid, traditional publishers. Could you walk us through that sort of process, and why did you do the things that you did with the books you have written?
Sure. Yeah. So my first book, Cry Until You Laugh, documenting basically my year-long journey with cancer and losing my husband. I never intended that to be a book. I I wrote, and I would send things out by email, because this is several years ago, the 2008. So it's a while ago, and Facebook wasn't what Facebook is now, I guess. And so I would send them out by email. And before I knew it, 5,000 people were reading what I was sending, and that number just kept growing. And at in the end of it all, I had people that would contact me that were printing them all off and
Uh,
taking their daughters to a hotel room and spending the weekend just reading my writings, and
Hmm.
or for their study group or whatever it happened to be. And so I had a friend who had a printing company say, "You got to make this a book. You got to make it a book." And so I self-published my first book. So Cry Until You Laugh, I self-published, and then it was picked up by a publisher. It was picked up by Morgan James a couple years after it was published. My second book, Love Is, I had the opportunity at a writers conference to hand a book proposal to
hmm.
a couple of publishing houses, and one of them called and said, "We want to do this." And so that was traditionally published. Love is traditionally published.
And then that's kind of interesting because you kind of built in. I'm always interested in audiences too, what the marketing aspect of it is. And now with the first book, what you're really saying is you actually had a waiting audience, which is really advantageous. And that's also what publishers are looking for. They want you to come to them with an audience ready for you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the questions, how big is your platform? How many
Yes.
people do you know? Because there's a lot of books out there. I mean, I think it's a valid question. There's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of people that want to write a book. Everybody's got a story.
Sure.
Everybody has a story. Whether you put it on paper or not, you've got a story. And quite often you think, well, everybody else wants to read my story too. Like, it's my story, but I think it's so great that everybody should read my story.
Yeah.
And so you want to get it out there. But quite often, not everybody wants to read your story. But the people that know you, love you, want to read your story. The people that you've connected with through life want to read your story. And then those people will tell other people about your story. So if you have a platform already, you've got so many followers, you've got so many people on your Facebook, you've got an email list of however long, all those things certainly help you out a lot to hit the ground running when your book is published.
Mm. And so from where you are today, what do you envision? Like, where would you go from here? Do you have other books in mind? You have other things that you want to work on? And you speak as well too, which I guess is part of your marketing strategy as well, because you're a speaker. Do you use your books in that context?
Right, right, right. Well, and books are sort of like a really long business card. Books can get your foot in the door. Like, when I uh, apply to be a speaker somewhere, or somebody is looking for a certain kind of speaker, and I put my name in there, being an author changes things for you a bit. If somebody's not an author and somebody's an author, it's like you get a little bit of a leg up. And so it's that part of publishing is really nice, that whatever it is that you're doing, whatever you're passionate about, however you're helping people in the world, in whatever business you have, if you've got a book, it doesn't have to be long, but you have a book and you work with Mick and he helps you get it all together, then that it's so easy to hand it to somebody who's hiring speakers, who's looking for a coach, looking for a mentor, looking for whatever it is that you're doing. There's like this instant credibility, and so it's good. And yes, I have books in the works. I'm writing a book on
Yeah.
grief,
Oh.
and I am also writing a book that I'm subtitling. Um, the way my kids tell me I screwed up and what they will do differently. Because my kids are very good. My kids are real, like, gold medal good at letting me know what I did wrong in raising them. So I'm enjoying writing that book. It's so fun.
But yeah, I was asking about inspiration, but I guess there's the inspiration, right? There.
Right, right. And the inspiration for the grief book is, you know, when you've gone through grief, when you've gone through a big loss, you don't know until you're in that um, grief. We like to judge people's grief. We like to tell people, get over it. We never get over it. I like to say you get on top of it,
Mm.
right? But you don't get over it. That person will forever be part of your life. It's not like you forget them because they're not here anymore. And so you don't get over it. So, those aren't the words to say, but there seems to be like a timeline in people's heads. Like, you got to get out of bed by day 3. If you're not out of bed, showered and ready to go by day 3, that's all you get to grieve. You get those 3 days or whatever it is. And it's almost like people think it's contagious somehow. Like, widows, I'm not fond of the word, but I am one, uh, gain 15 pounds on average,
Mm.
lose 80% of their friends, and 80% of them leave their church that they're going to if they're attending a church. That's not real great, happy statistics, whatever. But I think, all of a sudden you're sitting in the pew alone and the people around you aren't sitting around you anymore. The people that used to be your friends, it's almost like you know, I don't know, like your pig pen on Charlie Brown and you come with a cloud and nobody wants to be in that cloud. And I think people need to know, I believe, that you can grieve however you want. Your grief is your grief and you can grieve however you want. Somebody wrote a book several years ago. These are the stages of grief, right?
Mhm.
And we've taken that as gospel, right? Like, these are the stages you go through. So I got criticized for not being angry. Like, where's my anger? Why
Yeah.
didn't I go through that stage? Well, I I didn't. I didn't go through anger, sadness. Oh my gosh, whatever. A lot of other things, but I didn't go through the steps. I didn't do it in the right order. And I think people need to understand that you're allowed to grieve how you grieve. Like, we shouldn't be judging other people's grief. It's their grief, and let them go through it how they get through it.
It's a reference to Kubler-Ross, and I said, now my father's passed away, God rest his soul, and I'd say it was a good funeral, and the people that strikes people odd, but I said, but it was a lot of resolution, there was a lot of people there, the family support, and all those kinds of things. So I said, I kind of put it in quotes, like, good funeral. How can you have a good funeral? Well, it's really a celebration of this really terrific human being's life and my father. And I said, it was a good funeral. I get odd looks at it, but I'm curious because you had tragedy before, but you put a very optimistic spin on it. And I assume that's sort of your angle with the grief book, that you're going to put a more positive and optimistic slant on what most people would consider a really a tragedy.
Yeah, well, part of grief, the reason you grieve is because you loved. If you didn't like the person, you're not going to grieve them, right?
Yeah.
If the dog annoyed you, you're not going to care if the dog dies. And so you grieve, and you grieve heavily. The more you love, the heavier you grieve. The sadness is just that much deeper. The loss is just felt that much more, like a big pit, like in your stomach that doesn't want to go away. And uh grieving is, I think, very healthy. And I think it's good to note that you grieve because you loved. Because if you don't love in life, what do you have? I mean, the world is all about people and relationships. We're kind of getting away from that a little too much with all the screens and all the things and everything distracting us from relationship. But
Mhm.
that's the most important thing in life, are people. And the people that you love are the most important people to you. And when one of them is no longer waking up beside you,
Mm.
holy cow. I mean, if I thought my husband was a jerk, I probably wouldn't have been so sad and had, a hard time going through. So it's good to grieve. Like, in other countries, people grieve heavily. Like in Haiti, I spent a lot of time in Haiti.
Mm.
Man, you hear down the road, you hear the people just heaving, bawling, like
Mm.
loud screams and crying because they're letting it out. Here, we're very subdued. We try not to cry. If we start to cry, we try to stop it. We got Kleenex everywhere to wipe away the tears instead of just letting the tears flow.
Mhm.
And there's something about letting it go. Like, they grieve heavily, and but they're releasing something that in our country we kind of say, don't release it, because you're going to make people uncomfortable, so don't grieve that way. So yeah, I think the positive spin is the freedom to grieve how you want to grieve however grieving is natural for you, and just do it. It's okay. It's okay to grieve how you grieve, and there are things that you can do that'll help you out along the way.
It kind of reminds me of the practice in New Orleans. You ever see it? They have the kind of somber march to the cemetery, and then once it's over, it's like, okay, now we're going to party. And you think, well, that strikes people as really odd. But what they're doing, again, of course, letting out all this emotion, and it's okay to be very expressive. Which I agree with your point. Sometimes people are going to stifle who and what they are in their emotions, but bad approach.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we got to give ourselves permission
Yeah.
to let it out.
And, things that people are interested in, I'm curious if you could give some takeaways, like how the writing process should be, looking for a publisher or that process. So, what sort of takeaways would you recommend for authors or potential authors?
Well, I would say this: self-publishing is bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. Self-publishing is a great way to go. Uh, the difference between self-publishing and getting a publisher is you're paying for the book cover, you're paying for the editing, you're paying for everything that goes into the book. Whereas a publisher then is paying for the book cover and paying for the editing and all of the stuff that goes into the book and doing some publicity. But the reality is, with either case, you're the one selling your book. Selling your book is up to you. Whether you're self-published or you're with a publisher, you're the one that really needs to get the word out there. And so, unless your name is Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton, whoever, those books are going to sell because of the name that's on them. But
Sure.
I'm Kim Sorrelle. Who knows Kim Sorrelle? I mean, hopefully some people, but not everybody. And so you have to promote. I think that's one thing that people don't necessarily realize is the real work begins after the book is out.
Hmm.
Right. So yeah, so I would say self-publishing, getting a publisher, I think it's a personal choice. Getting a publisher is not easy. It was very simple for me. I That's not the normal story to hand out two book proposals and one of them say, we want to publish your book. That's not normal. Chicken Soup for the Soul, it was like 130 book proposals or something. They approached that many publishers before somebody finally said yes. That's more normal. And so getting published can be an arduous thing. That can be a difficult thing to do. You have to have a great book proposal. You have to have a platform like you were talking about earlier. There's certain things that a publisher is going to look for. Not every publisher publishes every kind of book. They might look for different things in different seasons. Some publishers are very predictable, some are very unpredictable, and who to approach and do you need an agent? And there's a lot more to it. Self-publishing, if you've got somebody in your corner that can help you through the process, I believe is a great way to go. I Either are good, but you got to be pretty thick-skinned to go to try to get a publishing house to publish your book because typically people get a whole lot of no's and you're like, my book is the greatest. Why would they say no? I can't believe, what are they missing? Like they're messing up by saying no. But uh, authors get way more no's than yeses when it comes to publishing a book.
Well, I appreciate your insights and, of course, the book. So I'm really curious now because people have heard you, they know your background, your expertise, and what your plans are. How do they reach out to you? Where the book's available? Can you tell us about those kinds of things so people can reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the only Kim Sorrelle spelled my way in the entire world because there are way too many letters. There's two R's, two E's, two L's. I don't know why. Sorrelle, kimsorrelle.com is my website. On my website, I have a free 14-day love challenge
Mm.
that is fun to do, easy to do, but also pretty enlightening. So you can go on there and download that. There's links to my books. I'm on Amazon. I'm in on some brick and mortar stores as well. I'm in lots of different countries, so it just kind of depends on where you're traveling at the moment, I guess. But the booksellers online are easy ways to get the books. And yeah, and I want to say they're probably not what you expect. Like love sounds like this heavy, heavy subject. But I tell the real stories of the tarantulas and so it's I tell how I discovered what I discovered and even Cry Until You Laugh, like that sounds like, man, that would be a really sad book. Well, there's a lot of humor in the book um, as well because there has to be, otherwise I would still be in bed under the covers and with a pillow on my head or something. So
Yeah, it's very
yeah.
engaging though. Very interesting. It's like you got all the stories and you got this great storytelling ability. So I appreciate you taking the time, sharing your expertise, and of course your background. So hopefully things are sounds better, and hopefully things are better for you in the future and continue to love.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Everybody who's listening, if this show is not top of your list on your podcast list, it needs to be because you do such a great job, Mick, and the show is so good. And the opportunity that you give authors, and you have great authors. Like I get all their books, like everything I listen to. So thank you for doing what you do.
Well, I didn't know you were going to say it, but thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thanks, Kim. I appreciate your time coming on the show. All right. So if you enjoyed Kim, like certainly I did, I learned something and it's also very enlightening for me. So I appreciate that. If you want to reach out to me, I'm the Idea to Author Coach on Facebook. Also want to thank the publishers of a couple volumes, that is Burning America and also On Track, Ian Hunter, for their support of the program. Reach out to me on the Idea to Author Coaching on Facebook. Until next exciting episode and exciting author. We'll see you next time. This is the Dr. Digital.